I am not a big fan of pound for pound lists because the whole pound for pound concept is very abstract. How do you decide who is the pound for pound number one? How do you decide a top 10 when it's such an abstract concept? Is it simply based on who has achieved what within their weight division? Or is it based on who would win in a fantasy matchup between a welterweight and a heavyweight? Because if that's the case, do you make both guys the same height? And if you do, then again, it's a very, very abstract concept, because then you would have to try and imagine how much faster the heavyweight would be if he was a welterweight, etc., etc. So there's a myriad of issues when you're dealing with such an abstract concept as pound for pound. And when you're dealing with heavyweights, for example, there's no weight limit in heavyweight. So you could get a guy 20, 30 pounds heavier than the other guy, and the smaller guy wins the fight. Isn't that more impressive than somebody at welterweight beating someone that's only 10 pounds heavier than them? You get what I'm telling you? So, and again, what about a guy who is massively bigger than most of his opponents? A heavyweight that's massively bigger. Does he get as much credit for being on a long winning streak as a welterweight who's fighting everybody pretty much the same size as himself? So it's an abstract concept. Anyway, this is why I don't do pound for pound top 10s. But simply based on what they've done lately, and again, for me, pound for pound is about what you've done lately. It's not about what you did 10 years ago. It's about what you've done late. Don't get it twisted. What you've done 10 years ago and your entire resume throughout your career has to be taken into account, in my opinion, in pound for pound. But the most important thing is what you've done over the past, let's say 2-3 years. What you've done lately. And based on what fighters have done lately, I see no reason not to have Terence Crawford as the number one pound for pound right now, based on what he's done lately. Again, I'm not a fan of pound for pound, and I'm not necessarily saying that he would make my number one pound for pound, but a very strong argument could be made that Terence Crawford should now be regarded as the number one pound for pound following his comprehensive victory over Victor Postal. Who else is out there that you could put in the mix? Chocolatito Gonzalez. Some people may argue him. Triple G. But has Triple G faced as good a level opposition as Terence Crawford? I would say no. Victor Postal is an excellent fighter. Don't get it confused and twisted because Terence Crawford was able to run circles around him. Going into that fight, I was very, very much intrigued about what was going to happen, and I rated Victor Postal very highly. My opinion of Victor Postal hasn't changed. I still see him as an excellent fighter. He just got beaten by an even more excellent fighter. I give credit to Crawford rather than trying to take anything away from Victor Postal. He was taken out of his comfort zone. He's not normally a front foot guy. He's not good at cutting off the ring. Every fighter has flaws. Anyway, I would say Victor Postal is probably a better fighter pound for pound than anybody that Triple G has beaten so far in his professional boxing career. I'll stand by that. And so therefore, for me, I can't rate Triple G higher than Terence Crawford pound for pound right now, personally. Then you look at who else is out there. Canelo Alvarez, I mean, I'm not even going to go into Alvarez. But he certainly would not be my number one pound for pound. Definitely not. Sergey Kovalev, oh, he's beaten Hopkins. A 50-year-old guy. That's about it. You know? I mean, Jean Pascal, really? When was Jean Pascal ever that good? when he was in his prime, to me, when he was at his absolute best, he lost to Frutch and he lost to he lost to Frutch and he lost to Hopkins. And he really was on the slide by the time he fought Sergey Kovalev, particularly the second time. I think Kovalev had beaten whatever Pascal had left in him out of him in the first fight. In the second fight, Pascal was just a shell. So, are you really trying to tell me that the Pascal victories and the Hopkins victory are more impressive than beating Victor Postal, Yuriorkis Gamboa, and all these other guys that Crawford's been beaten? I mean, I'm not saying it's definitive. You can have your own number one pound for pound. That's cool. But I'm just putting my thoughts out there and explaining why personally, if I was to do a pound for pound, I would struggle to find at this point in time anybody more eligible and more worthy of the pound for pound number one spot than Terence Crawford. Who else you got? Heavyweight Tyson Fury. Well, Tyson Fury has one great victory over Vladimir Klitschko. That was a great victory. In a similar type of fashion to Terence Crawford's victory over Victor Postal. And in fact, it was more impressive because of the fact that Vladimir Klitschko is a much more decorated professional than Victor Postal. So it was more impressive. But take away what he did against Vladimir Klitschko, who has Tyson Fury beaten? If you take away the Klitschko performance and compare his resume to Terence Crawford, Crawford still fought better opposition than Tyson Fury has. And beaten better opposition. So maybe Tyson Fury could be a contender against Terence Crawford in terms of pound for pound, what he's done lately. You know, maybe. Because of the fact he does have that really good win over Vladimir Klitschko. Very impressive. And then you've got, obviously, Andre Ward. But this is why, for me, it's about what you've done lately. Andre Ward did a lot of great things several years ago. But over the past, 3 years, he's beaten nobody of note. Edwin Rodriguez, Paul Smith, Sullivan Barrera. These are not the kind of victories, for me, which are good enough to place you at pound for pound number one. So to me, Andre Ward has kind of fallen off a little bit there. And if he was to beat Kovalev, I think you can make a strong argument for him being number one pound for pound again. Kovalev, I think it is fair to say, at this point in time, should be more highly rated than a Victor Postal. So, yeah, those are my thoughts anyway on Terence Crawford pound for pound. Do you have him as pound for pound number one? If so, why? If not, also tell me why. Who do you have at number one pound for pound if it's not Terence Crawford? And explain your reasoning for having them there. A lot of people have got Triple G. And yeah, Triple G's been consistent. He's been knocking people out. He's thoroughly dominant. But for me, the level of opposition, it's not his fault, but the level of opposition hasn't been there. You know, you look at other guys, Tyson Furies and Crawfords and whatnot, they've beaten much better level opposition than Triple G's beat. So, I don't know. Again, it's all abstract at the end of the day. It's all abstract. This is why I'm not really a stickler for pound lists. If you disagree with me in terms of Crawford pound for pound number one for whatever reasons, and you think that having a consistent track record of mediocre opposition like Triple G has is better than just having one or two wins over top flight opposition, fair enough, if you want to make that argument. It's all up in the air, it's all abstract. So, yeah, those are just my thoughts, people. I think a strong argument could be made that Terence Crawford is number one pound for pound at the moment. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.